Hello, everybody. Welcome to Away Games, a Chicago Cubs and baseball podcast hosted by two comedians who live in New York and love the Cubs. My name is Adam Mamawala. I am one of those comedians. Here is Kevin McCaffrey. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, I'm here back on Away Games into month 5, waiting for DraftKings to pay us the $30 they owe us. Still no word from there. Hopefully they have gotten their windfall from the trade deadline and have bulked up the budget to get $30 they promised for ad reads, and we've exchanged more than 30 emails, and they just can't pull it off. But we're back and doing this with no sponsor.
Exactly. Well, I mean, given the DraftKings beef, I think we're unofficially brought to you by FanDuel. So FanDuel, if you're listening, reach out to us.
FanDuel, holler at your boys with $31 in Venmo immediately, and you can take over the lead spot. Man, this follow us at Away Games Pod on Twitter and all the things if you like. And this week there actually has been some baseball news. Do you have a thing you particularly want to start with, Adam?
We can start wherever you'd like. I'm just excited. I mean, I feel like even though we haven't extended Willson Contreras, we've kind of extended Kevin McCaffrey on this podcast because things were looking kind of tenuous there.
Things were looking tenuous. They're looking tenuous every day, but I am here for at least a little while longer. I've now picked basically the arbitrary spot of when they decide not to re-sign Willson Contreras and to literally do everything as badly as possible throughout the way. Once Willson signs somewhere else, I just might be gone. That might be it. I will be excited for the Cubs, kind of, for the most part. I'll never not be a massive Cubs fan, but I like rooting for people and for competent organizations and, whatever. So we do at least have more Willson to enjoy. And my gosh, what a fun walk-off. I would say Willson Contreras throwing someone out at second to end a game, to me, is as fun, if not more fun, than him hitting a bomb to win it.
Yeah, I mean, it is a walk-off. It's like a defensive walk-off.
Yeah, which is so fun. And especially in this week where I feel like there's almost this swelling narrative around Willson Contreras that as a catcher that is, so it's its own runaway train now, where people are talking, and even like smart people like Sahadev Sharma and stuff, like I have started talking as if Willson Contreras is unplayable as a catcher behind the plate.
Yeah, I don't understand that at all.
I don't understand it either. And you can go over to you can look at the stats. I like Willson Contreras obviously had a big spike in how good he was at framing after being bad at it for a while, and now he's dropped back down. He's dropped back down to somewhere between the 33rd to 40th percentiles where it's seen in the league, that's not ideal, but also, I mean, that is if 2/3 of starting catchers in the league are better at framing than Willson Contreras, he's better at hitting than all of them. There is total value here, and his pop time in terms of getting the ball down to second is in the 88th percentile as of now. He still shuts down a running game as well as any catcher in the league. That is a value, and
he'll backpick your ass.
And he, as far as like guys to work with for a pitching staff, we've heard Marcus Stroman say good things about it, which makes sense. I mean, they're actively playing together now. You're not going to hear him like talk shit about a catcher as a game caller, but John Lester grew to
only Jake Arrieta would do that.
Only Jake Arrieta, yes, and John Lackey maybe too. But yes, John Lester has raved about working with Willson Contreras. If John Lester likes throwing to you, I think you're a workable catcher. So this talk about Willson being like a DH only or first baseman going forward or something, which I feel like has gained too much steam lately, to me is an out of control narrative. This is still, if you want to have a primarily like ace defensive catcher, not that there's that many of those, and Willson is the catcher who catches 60 games or whatever, fine, but I hate that narrative.
There were two narratives that I really didn't like as the trade deadline came and went. The first was exactly what you're talking about, which I have a couple thoughts on that. First of all, framing is going to get less important, if that even is an issue. Framing is going to get less important as we move closer to some sort of electronic strike zone. It does seem like things may be trending that way. Who knows if that'll be good for baseball or not, but that's one thing. Secondly, in the way that people saw Schwarber in the 2015 NLCS and decided he was a bad fielder forever.
Hmm.
It feels a little bit that way with Willson, where because of issues many years ago, people still see him that way. And also similar to Schwarber, yes, Schwarber was not the best person in the world at tracking fly balls, but he had a great arm that made up for it a lot of the time. And it's kind of that way with Willson too. Not only has he improved a lot in terms of framing it and just catching and calling ball games, but what he does lack in certain areas, he does make up for with how big that arm is. Secondly, I found it very troubling that there was somewhat of a narrative, like as we were recording last week leading up to the trade deadline, that was like, oh, maybe people don't want to play with Willson Contreras. It felt the same way as like the Javi Baez coded language of like, well, he's a pretty flashy, emotional guy, and
Yeah.
that might rub some teammates the wrong way. Maybe I have my rose-colored glasses on here, but it's hard for me to imagine not wanting to have Willson Contreras or a guy like Willson Contreras as your teammate.
Yeah, and I know I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but Kyle Schwarber, as you mentioned, is someone who specifically, I remember consoling Willson Contreras after the wild card loss to Colorado, and then talking to reporters very sincerely and saying everyone cares, but you guys don't understand, that guy really cares. And seeing how and Kyle Schwarber is someone who has been really beloved in every clubhouse he's been to, and now he's been to several winning teams, leads the National League in home runs. This is we had someone tweet at us that's fan stats, and that Kyle Schwarber's bad, one of these weird Jed Hoyer bot stands that's out there. But Kyle Schwarber is a guy who's beloved, who's performed, he's produced, and he's been beloved in every clubhouse. And he was also saying, sort of unprompted, singing Willson Contreras' praises as a teammate. And we've heard from coaches that they've told Willson Contreras, don't hold back, especially coming into this year, about the things you feel. When the fact that he has a good baseball IQ, that he cares this much, they wanted him to step forward as a leader. And look at Chris Morel. Look at all these, Nelson Velasquez coming up. Look at the rookies who've come up this year and how much they've taken to Willson Contreras as a leader. I think you're 100% right. That reeks of that like coded, I don't know, culturally, he's just too fiery to play with kind of bullshit. And I don't think it's, I mean, I'm not saying that there might not be truth to the fact that some shitty executives are throwing that around also in negotiations to try to drive his price down, probably. But I don't think it's based in any sort of reality.
Well, it seems to me that you don't expect the Cubs to re-sign Contreras in the offseason, and perhaps that's the correct assessment. What do you think it would take for him to resign?
In terms of numbers?
Yeah.
I mean,
numbers and years, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you go, something like, I think 4 and 80 would probably get it done. It sucks for, and maybe something like 3 for 72, something like that. I don't know, with a mutual option of sorts. I think what sucks for Willson Contreras is because of how things have shaken out. There's still the compensation pick attached. So anyone who would sign him would lose their draft pick that teams are valuing at around 20 million. So that will hurt the contract he signs for, which is bizarrely and frustratingly the only thing that gives me hope about the Cubs re-signing him is if Jed Hoyer sees that attaching the qualifying offer to him drives the price down enough so that Willson Contreras comes in under market back to the Cubs in a way.
Right.
Which, I mean, if that's what Willson wants, then I would obviously be thrilled for that as a fan. I think it's the contending thing to do. But yeah, I mean, I think you're looking at a 3 or 4 year deal, probably somewhere around the 20 million, $15 to $20 million mark.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of appropriate comps for him. Obviously, it doesn't seem like he would get what Real Muto got, and part of that is because of the draft pick. Also, like in terms of the draft pick compensation, I don't really know the history of it, but it's amazing to me that players ever agreed to that in any sort of collective bargaining agreement. Like it's so clearly harmful towards players making money that it seems like amazing that it ever got in the first place.
The baseball union was really, under Tony Clark's leadership, especially in the early years of it, was just really, they got their asses kicked all over the place. they need to Marvin Miller, who like broke US Steel, was historically the greatest leader of the players union we've had.
Right.
So maybe a smart first baseman isn't what we need to be like, like maybe someone who has
Right.
more experience in like legitimate high profile labor things, because I don't want to shit on Tony Clark, but he did a shitty job. And I think that's exactly right. It's terrible for the players, and hopefully it gets changed. There was talk about it going away if they could agree to, if players and ownership could agree to the international draft and rules about that, and they did not. So there we are.
Which, all things being equal, I'm glad they tabled some of those things to get baseball started this year. But nevertheless, it is going to affect people like Willson in the offseason.
Exactly. So as far as talking about one Cub who is staying around a little longer, one Cub who's not staying around any longer. Happy birthday, Jason Heyward. The Cubs announced they are releasing Jason Heyward after this year, literally the day before his birthday. So just once again, Jed Hoyer, the timing on that is incredible. What a perfectly, just a guy who really knows how to work the human element here, getting it done once again.
Yeah, and I guess maybe they would have looked worse if they didn't do anything, but it is particularly funny juxtaposing that announcement and then the next day, happy birthday from @Cubs. Jason Heyward, not shitting on the person who runs @Cubs. Obviously, has nothing to do with them. But I did see some tweets that were like, well, clearly Heyward must have known about it because he's currently in Rome for his birthday.
Right.
So I guess perhaps they had those discussions privately because according to Instagram, Jason Heyward and his wife are eating gelato in Rome at the moment.
I mean, good for him. That's I'm glad to hear that. And obviously he's been on the injured list. How actual injured that is, who knows? But he's been on the injured list for a while now, and that sounds like a nice way to spend your birthday. But yeah, just a quick a quick goodbye to Jason Heyward here. I mean, obviously from a baseball perspective, that's the right move. It's been the right move for a while. There's just nothing to be done here, with him. He apparently plans to keep on playing after this year. But, I mean, everyone knows he was bad at offense the whole time. He made a lot of money, which good for him. That's not his fault. He worked hard the entire time. Teammates loved him. He opened... I mean, he's still, and like on Instagram before the Rome stuff, I believe his last picture up was about the Jason Heyward Baseball Academy that he's been building in Chicago and continues to build. So, I mean, just a guy who's done genuinely amazing things and continues to do so in Chicago is great. And Jason Heyward, I'm sure, would have loved to have been getting MVP votes every year. What he did do was he busted his ass. He tried to win. He was a pleasure to watch defensively. And,
I guess my question is, when you look at Jason Heyward, he is maybe the best example I've ever seen of someone whose value to a club cannot solely be measured by the numbers. Like we've talked about this many times, but the idea that someone who was struggling as much as him had the gravitas to give the speech that he gave really speaks to his stature in that clubhouse, because it's not often that a guy who's hitting 210 is able to rally the troops and be like, listen, I'm literally not leading by example as far as hitting is concerned, but let's go out there and get some hits and win this game.
Oh yeah. And then he went out and had one of the worst at bats in human history immediately after that.
Yes. Very bad at bat. Yeah. How would his tenure in Chicago be remembered if the Cubs lose Game 7, if there is no rain delay speech?
I mean, then we probably never hear about the speech, for one thing. So, I mean, you wouldn't have that one tent pole, a single tent pole for a very vertical tent, just sitting there to sort of hang his, the Jason Heyward memories on, because that's it, right? That's what you think of. There was the walk-off grand slam is another Heyward moment I remember. But I mean, in whatever it is, 7 years, I guess, or 6 years of 6-7 years of Heyward. I mean, I think honestly, there just isn't much of a legacy, but if not for the championship, but if not for the championship is quite a big phrase, isn't it? The championship happened.
Yeah, as far as on the field stuff, I think the images that come to mind the most with Heyward are the walk-off grand slam and him sliding in head first on the Lester squeeze bunt.
That's a great one too. That's a really good one too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there were some moments in there. I mean, he strikes me as a guy who's such like, if he chose to go that way, could possibly make a great manager, he's clearly
Sure.
like good at leading men. And also he is someone who, it's crazy that he came up as a 20-year-old. Granny hit a grand slam off Carlos Zambrano immediately, and had all this hype around him as a first round pick coming up with the hometown Braves, basically, and had all the talent in the world, and then just like got to a point where it kind of went away and it doesn't really make a lot of sense, and he continued to push, and that is an interesting profile for how you can relate to other people, because someone with all the talent in the world, it didn't work, he kept trying, kept pushing forward, putting the team first. 4-3 ground out after 4-3 ground out, still bringing it back. I mean, I think that's like a relatable thing, right? Because that's why people like Michael Jordan don't make for the best coaches, because they don't understand the failure in the same way. Right. And I think I mean, I'm someone who feels like I'm grounding out 4-3 every day of my fucking life. So this is, but you keep trying. So yeah, I think his legacy is like someone who kept trying, and that's not nothing.
Yeah, I agree. And so I assume in this case that means the Cubs just kind of eat the last year of his salary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But
it's interesting that they made this decision now after people have been calling for it for so long.
Right. There's sort of, I mean, and who knows what's going on behind the scenes, but also we know Willson Contreras, as of like a day or two ago, said Jed Hoyer hadn't even talked to him, besides saying hello, like in passing in the hallway. So I think giving this front office credit for like being clear about anything with their players is not, I think that's giving them too much credit so far. So who knows how long these conversations have been going or whatever, how long I don't know if this was clear with Hayward when he first went on the injured list in this instance, because there was never a reason to bring him back. I mean, once the Cubs were bad this year, which was clear in the first month, right, it could have happened then. So who knows? But I guess the point is it has happened. So,
well, it does sound like he wants to keep playing. I imagine he'll get some sort of like veterans minimum deal somewhere to be like a fourth outfielder, maybe. And if and when that happens and he comes back to Wrigley, I hope they give him the ovation he deserves. I mean, if CJ Edwards last night can get a big ovation, I think Jason Heyward deserves one too.
I love a good Carl's Jr. Ovation. That's great. Edwards got the save yesterday.
Still has a live arm from what I could tell.
He's always had the stuff, so I'm really happy to see Edwards back in the majors. He's great. Also a great cameo. If you guys want to get him to do a cameo, he's on there, and he gave he was one of my wife's favorite players, and he gave a great message. I got one from him as part of her birthday. So
you're just racking up all sorts of Cubs cameos here.
Really good. There's some good ones out there, still waiting on Pedro Strop for the Adam Amawala birthday, but maybe one day. So that's the only real bummers. It would have been nice to give Hayward a thank you send off, and hopefully we will still get that chance as fans. So good luck. God bless. It's the right move, etc.
Yeah. All right. Where should we go next? Should we go to the to Franmil Reyes signing?
Yeah. Cubs picked up another guy, the move they like making most, picking up a dude off waivers. So they, with one former brief waiver success story, Frank Schwindel went down to AAA now. Who knows if this is the end of the Schwindel story. Anthony Rizzo is third in the American League in home runs. I mentioned that. Not at all. I mean, I mentioned that only for the people who couldn't stop tweeting about Schwindel's positive WAR difference versus Rizzo last year. Just so we're clear, Anthony Rizzo's still good, and God bless Frank Schwindel, he's back in AAA. But this is another waiver pickup where Franmil Reyes was released by the Guardians, and now he's a Cub. And if you don't know him, he's a big boy. He's 6'5", 265, and he's basically a DH. He can play in the outfield corners, but you'd rather he didn't, I think is fair to say. And last year he had a great year. He had 30 homers, 85 RBIs last year with Cleveland. In 2019, he had 37 homers. And so I mean, this is a guy who has a slash line 253, 314, 478 for his career. That's good for a 113 OPS plus, 13% above league average. What he does is he hits the shit out of the ball when he hits it.
Right.
So
Yeah, and there's now that there is the DH in both leagues, there are more places for those dudes. And he came through last night in a big spot, 3-0 pitch. We're recording this on Wednesday against the Nationals last night in that very interesting singles only. It was a real singles mixer in the seventh inning there. I think there were six singles in that bottom of the seventh. Our buddy Ken
what a
Schultz
day
was
for
there
Mark Grace.
to watch it.
Just prowling the premises.
Yes. Mark Grace had a lot of interest in singles in many facets.
Yes.
But yeah, Franmil Reyes came up after a kind of weird send where Ortega was thrown out at the plate on a very shallow line drive fly ball from Happ, and came through Reyes, that is, on a 3-0 pitch and tied the game. So good for him. And look, I'm not going to call it Jed's league because he signed Franmil Reyes, but that is the sort of guy that I'm fine with taking a chance on. Why the hell not?
Yeah, it is definitely. And Franmil's fun. He seemed, I think, for a comp, if you guys are looking for it, is his bat and offensive profile is basically what you would when Franmil has been going, when he's been hitting in previous years. Because this year, we should also say this year, he was hitting 213 with a 254 on base, 350 slugging. Just terrible stuff in Cleveland, and that's in 280 plate appearances, so that's not nothing. But I think Nelson Velazquez is someone whose profile is kind of like this, where you're talking top end exit velocity, a guy who can absolutely hit the stuffing out of the ball, but is probably not going to take walks, basically. So you're looking for, it's sort of a low on base, high slugging profile that you're going to play. Nelson's played a little bit in the center, but he's, more of a corner outfielder. Nelson brings you defensive value that Franmil doesn't a little bit. But I think if you're thinking about what kind of bat this is, I think it's sort of like you hope Nelson Velazquez offensively can end up sort of like what Franmil is when he's going. So yeah, I mean, the only thing about it that gives me a little pause, the artist formerly known as Clint, now Jackson Frazier in AAA, was a sort of similar pickup, except Frazier has very good strike zone discipline, which is different. He takes walks and stuff. Frazier hasn't really been hitting in AAA, but I mean, and Franmil wasn't hitting up here either. Mm-hmm. But it sort of makes me think, all right, so they must be out on Jackson Frazier, which is a little disappointing to me. But but it's also no, like you say, it's not. There's no risk in taking a guy on waivers like this.
When the hell did he change his name? He changed his name to Jackson Frazier?
Yeah, apparently that's been his name, but he was going as Clint for a while, maybe a month and a half ago.
Real Mike to John Carlos sort of situation here.
Absolutely,
it is the old slump buster.
Mm-hmm, yeah, yes, absolutely. So yeah, he's I mean, I think Clint's career stats are better than Jackson's to this point, but
yeah.
So Franmil's up here and he's whatever. Fun. I guess this is what we're getting at the end of this year.
Yeah, I feel like that's never a good sign. I feel like that's the last step, changing your name of like, yeah. I've changed my batting gloves, I've changed my shoes, I've used different bats, I've put eye black on, I've taken it off.
Yes. What if I wasn't me? is the final answer. It's like, all right, I'm somebody else now, and let's see how that works.
What do you got next?
I mean, as far as Cubs news, that's it. We had so as far as debuts from guys that the Cubs got at the trade deadline, Ben Brown came up and was absolutely just blowing people away. I think he had something like 8 strikeouts in the first 3 innings, I want to say, in his first appearance. So he's the guy the Cubs got from the Phillies for David Robertson. So that's very exciting. A guy, helium alert, Daniel Palencia is a guy the Cubs got for Andrew Chafin last year, and he's like a little shorter than most of your starting pitchers. He's pretty thick, and he was touching 102 as a starter.
Good Lord.
Yeah, and he 35 pitch outing through 27 strikes, struck out 7, I think it was. He's, I think, at high A right now. I could be wrong on that. I don't have it up right now, but Daniel Palencia is a guy very exciting to watch going on.
And if you want any indication of how much baseball has evolved over the years, just repeat the stat about someone throwing 102 in fucking A ball.
Yeah. He is bringing it. I'm excited to see Daniel Palencia moving up. And Ben Brown looked great. On the other end, the guy the Cubs got for our buddy Scott Efros, Hayden Wesneski, 1 2/3. and I believe it was 8 runs. I want to say. Let's take a quick look here. Not the best debut from Hayden, but it's just one start, so you know.
Yeah, and again, that's not. I understand the logic behind that trade more than I did when I initially saw Efros had been traded, and also like I don't know how you feel about the Chris Martin trade, but to get someone back who's now actively playing on the big league Cubs, and maybe he won't be a big piece. I'm talking about McKinstry.
Zach McKinstry,
I think that's a reasonably good exchange for someone at Chris Martin's level.
I think, I don't have any notes on that deal. McKinstry's left-handed hitter who's really torn it up from an average perspective. Hit for a high average in AAA. Hasn't really done it at the major league level yet. But yeah, he's a guy who plays all over the infield, plays in the corner outfield too. So he's kind of a utility left-handed bat is probably what you're looking at, which is fine. And yeah, I believe Hayden Wisniewski, who was the Yankees' number 7 prospect, more of a starter who some people are talking about should be about ready for the majors. I believe his 43.2 ERA is going to come down for the Cubs from here.
You'd have to hope.
So it's fine. I'll be curious to see his next start.
So speaking of people down on the farm in this last month and a half, and especially as rosters expand in a few weeks, who are you hoping to see up with the Cubs?
I mean, I think like Wisniewski is one of those guys. Obviously anyone can have one terrible start, but that's I think in terms of like a starting pitcher, that I honestly the player I probably want to see most coming back at the end of this year is Adbert Alzolay. Is he alive? Do we is just seeing him in some way by the end of this year, because gosh, it was so promising watching him as a starter, and it just feels like, you just have to play baseball at some point. Again, he's obviously had so many injuries, and that sucks. And from what everyone says, he's such a hard worker. But I really want to see that guy back in the majors, almost more than anyone who's like sitting in the minors, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, can we get a photo of Braylon Marquez holding up today's newspaper?
Braylon Marquez is just, I've given up. I feel bad for him. I don't know what the thing is surrounding it. He's gotten COVID a bunch of times. He went in for surgery again. It seems like it's a mix of surgeries, and he's showing up out of shape every year. It's just like, I don't know. You have to. He's a case where it's injuries, but also you do have to want to play baseball at some point. You do have to want to get better. And there's so many pitching prospects who are above Braylon Marquez now. That's something. I think something fun to look forward to. I am hopeful about Matt Mervis. Do you know about Matt Mervis?
I have heard some chatter about Matt Mervis, and it sounds like he is raking.
Matt Mervis, as of a couple days ago, was still leading all organized baseball in RBIs. He was like at 93 RBIs, which is the most across the minors or majors. He's left-handed hitting first baseman, and he's just been hitting the shit out of the ball. And he's been rising levels quickly. He was an undrafted free agent, but in the weird 5-round draft year, so he's not like he would have been drafted. In most years. And I think that's someone who, now that Schwindel's down in AAA, and I think we've seen more or less what Alfonso Rivas probably is, I would be interested to see Mervis come up and take some first base hacks.
Do you think he has a chance to take over the number 1 spot in the power rankings of Cubs whose names start with Matt Murr?
Look, I was a big Matt Merton guy. I think I thought he did not get the fairest of shakes up here. I was excited, and then he went, and I think he broke Ichiro's hit record in Japan, I believe, for a single season. So I don't know. You got to go pretty far to go past the great ginger hope of Matt Merton for me. But yeah, it could be he's got a chance. I mean, if he wants to come up and hit 30 bombs and 100 RBIs at first for the Cubs, yeah, he'll take that spot.
True. Matt Merton, who once signed a ball for me in Philadelphia, I assume about an hour before someone spit on my head.
Yeah. Yeah. So you had a real roller coaster of a day there. Matt Mervis, I'll say, he played at Duke, so he and Stroman could have some things to talk about. And he's gone all the way from high A ball in South Bend this year to now he is in Iowa.
Nice. Well, and also just really not even because of baseball, but just because I listened to the compound. It would be cool to see Dakota Mekas get called up finally
Oh
after all this
yes.
time. Like he was on the taxi squad last year, I think, and didn't get into a game. Like, for God's sakes, I think everyone's hoping that we're going to be a lot more competitive next year and in the coming years. Like, maybe Mekas doesn't stick in the big leagues, and that just is what it is. But like, get the guy up there and get him in a game. And apparently, he's been pitching better with a mustache. So.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's good for
Mm-hmm.
him. I mean, that's a you would say that's what, one or two stops before changing your name as far as
Yeah,
shaking up
I
things.
think so. Well, yeah, he wants to go North Dakota, not South. So
Yes, that makes sense. He was having a tough year to begin with, but he's been hot lately, so I think that's a good name.
yeah,
Let's get a Dakota and a Matt up, and someone locate Advert Alzolai.
exactly. All right. So with that in mind, do we want to round things out with a little fan mail?
Yeah, let's do fan mail. And guys, if you want to message us, we are at Away Games Pod on Twitter, on Instagram, and we're also on Facebook, which I must say, Adam, I have not checked, but we got a message from Facebook that Adam screen capped and texted me that I definitely wanted to reply to. But I don't know, do you want to read the message?
Yeah, I'll read the message.
Cool.
I won't read the name. We don't need to be out here, shitting on anybody. But it was an interesting message. And so, if you are listening, the person who sent this, this is our response to it. Again, this is our fan mail segment, not to be confused with our Fran mail segment, which we've already done.
Fran mail, absolutely.
That just sounds like Steve Brule saying fan mail.
You should absolutely. We are going to do Fran mail going forward, where it's just I specifically want to get one piece of mail from Franmil Reyes every week. And
Snail mail, though.
Yeah,
We'll give them our addresses.
Absolutely, we will address it. That would be an amazing segment to have.
Okay, so this was in response to something I assume we said last week. I believe it was me who said that the Brewers had traded away a bad person in Josh Hader to sign a worse person in Matt Bush, who I believe like gravely injured someone in a DUI accident.
Yeah.
But anyway, the message says, "Hey guys, big Cubs fan here. In my opinion, I'd leave the politics out of it. Josh Hader, white supremacy, ... White supremacy is wrong. Anyone with a brain knows that. Agreed there. He apologized many years ago. His teammate Devin Williams was tore up when he was traded. Josh Bell said they were good friends and couldn't wait to play with him in San Diego. Let's hope whatever issues he had when he was younger, he was educated on to move on and have an open mind. Sounds like he has. If it's good enough for Josh and Devin, it should be for you too. Thanks."
So several things. First of all, if this is the first time this person has ever messaged us, right? This is a person who's never messaged us before. And if you're someone who's listening and you've listened, you're a big Cubs fan, self-proclaimed, and you have listened to a baseball podcast for a long time, and the one time you are moved to write in is to defend a guy who had a bunch of old, not only racist, but homophobic tweets, I feel like that tells me a lot about you. If this is the one thing that motivates you to start typing is just us making a joke about Josh Hader being a shitty person. And let's just, everyone knows Josh Hader had the white supremacy tweets. Let me tell you what the tweets actually were. White power, LOL. Just KKK, standalone. N-word bot. The fuck? That just made my night, SMH. And then, I hate gay people. End of tweet. These were
that's kind of nuanced, though, Kevin. You got to really look into that.
Maybe he was doing a bit. So when we're talking about Josh Hader's tweets, that's specifically what it is, because I think a lot of people forget, what he said in an exact way.
Also, to just take a quick step back, any Cubs fan defending Josh Hader is confusing to me. Fundamentally.
What do you do? Well, I think like I said, I think that tells me about the person, right? This touches something inside the person who feels motivated to go defend Josh Hader from, I don't know, the third most popular Cubs podcast. Like, don't sweat it, my friend. I think Josh Hader's doing fine. Leave the politics out of it. What do you find? I want to know, what do you find politics about white supremacy? Like, what does that trigger? Leave the politics out. Is it because you feel like, I don't know, is there a political movement that sort of aligns itself with that? Maybe. And then when he says white supremacy is wrong, anyone with a brain knows that. That's easy to say, but to say that everyone knows white supremacy is wrong, do you not fucking read anything? that's happened in America in the past couple years. Because even in Chicago, there was just the second right-wing radical attempting a mass shooting in Chicagoland that chose the area for its ethnic makeup this summer. There's in Englewood Park, a guy just showed up with 5 guns, was thankfully taken down before he got to go on a rampage there. But this is a country with white supremacy spiking and being supported by some people. So no, it's not a given that people know white supremacy is wrong. And if you feel really moved to defend a guy's old white supremacist tweets, and that's the only thing you've ever messaged a Cubs podcast about. Also, it makes me wonder how many times this person has listened to our podcast, because what do you think telling us to not talk about something is going to fucking work? I mean, like, no, this is the wrong place for that, my dude. I'm going to say whatever the fuck I want. I'm going to do it here. I'm going to do it on stages forever. No, you go listen to something else. That is me saying that. Not necessarily Adam, but holy shit.
No, I think we're fairly aligned here. And I also think that anyone who's listened to us for any period of time has a pretty clear idea of where we stand on social issues.
Yeah, this isn't a big surprise. And if talking shit about people who tweeted the things I just specifically said to you, which, were years ago. And yes, he did the most basic apology for it that everyone who's ever been caught, and everyone in the public eye who's ever been caught talking like that has done the same cut and paste apology. All those people have. Mm-hmm. So if that hurts your feelings that we make jokes about him, I recommend other podcasts.
And truly, it wasn't we're not even saying it was like a rude message. It's just more strange than anything. Like there was nothing malicious about the way this person was saying it. But to your point, it's like if this is the one thing that you're like, now's when I'm going to chime in and give my feedback. So
I got to stand strong for my boy and for forgiveness for one very specific thing. I have no problems with any other shit you've talked about anything, but don't hurt my sweet, sweet old white supremacist boy who other people have forgiven, and God bless. But if it's good enough for them, it should be good enough for you. I'm my own man. That doesn't have to be good enough for me. Let
me tell you something. The outside strike call that Josh Hader got a couple nights ago with the bases loaded, that call was white supremacy. I've never seen someone get a worse ball call. Did you see that? It was so bad.
I did.
It was a foot outside.
Now we're gonna get the message from the same guy being like, please don't call. Look, that wrongly called strike has apologized, and if the rest of the umpires union is okay with it, that should be good enough for you. I guess it wasn't a rude message, but also this is in my life, Adam, and this is very me talking. People who are moved to defend stuff like that, like I said, when it's not someone who has ever messaged about anything else, I've found that these are not people I need to worry about going forward. It's like, all right, I learned a lot about you, everything I need to know. So if you would like to message us about anything with notes, comments, whatever, we're at Away Games Pod on Twitter, on Instagram, and you can Facebook message us over there, which I just learned you could do.
Yeah, I didn't, it like popped up on my phone and I was like, it was one of those weird things where all of a sudden I was in a different account and I was like, I don't want to be here anymore.
Dude,
get me out of here.
That is so Facebook, where it's just like you hit the wrong button. It's like, no, I'm in a old bar stand-up show account that I ran 7 years ago. Where am I?
I'm in a group I started when I was in college.
Yeah. So that's that. Thanks for the mail though. Is there anything else before we bounce?
Any thoughts on the Field of Dreams game? Obviously a little lackluster in comparison to last year's marquee matchup of the Yankees and White Sox, which was objectively a fantastic game. Juiced balls were certainly involved, but I don't know if you watched it last year, but like the dramatic Stanton home run to go ahead, then Tim Anderson walks it off. I would love to go. It's unbelievably expensive.
Totally.
Have you been to the Field of Dreams just to like walk around?
No. Yes, I have. I've been to just to walk around, but I've not been to I've not been to the game that existed, obviously.
Right. Any thoughts there?
I mean, I think
it'll be cool to watch.
Absolutely. I think it's a cool thing. I think it's a good thing that baseball has decided to do. I think that's a fun situation. And I obviously it's like the Cubs and Reds both suck. The Reds started the year 3-22 and are better than the Cubs now overall, FYI. But I mean, honestly, when I've seen a lot of people be like, oh man, oh no, the Field of Dreams game is between bad teams. It's kind of like, who gives a shit? Like, you can have bad teams in the Field of Dreams game. It's actually a way, like, games between good teams are interesting anyway. So this is
there's a reason the Jaguars always play in London.
That is a great point. Is like, we got to make this interesting somehow. So yeah, I think it's fun. I mean, gosh, in the final part of this year, that'll be the most interesting Cubs game to watch, probably.
And apparently Happ and Votto will be mic'd up, so that'll be fun.
That's very fun, and those are two great choices. Obviously, Joey Votto has really let his fun freak flag fly later in his career. He's a fun, quirky, interesting guy with
great TikTok follow.
Great TikTok follow, and Happ, as people know, is a sneaky, funny guy too. So I think that'll be a good time.
Yeah. Anything else? Any personal stuff to promote?
No, just, I mean, I got other podcasts. If you want to go send me any notes at those accounts over at the Bridgerton Bros and Sex and the City. Those are two podcasts I host, and I'm on the radio on Sirius XM 99 doing a show called Celebrate every Wednesday at 3 p.m. and I'm going to be heading over there soon. So
nice.
If you want to check me out, those places. How about you?
I'm going to be back in Chicago. I just booked a weekend headlining the other Zanies. I'll be out in the burbs headlining Zanies Rosemont.
Heck yeah.
On September 23rd and 24th. So if you want to come see me tell some jokes in a weird strip mall sort of situation with like a field in front of it, you know what I'm talking about. If you're the Villages at Bedford Park, whatever the hell it's called. Yes. I feel like it's kind of that same sort of vibe. But anyway, Zanies Rosemont, which is it's a good club. Different vibe than the city, of course. But for those of you in the burbs of Chicago, it's probably easier for you to get to than Old Town. So I will be there September 23rd and 24th, 2 shows each night. Maybe some other stuff while I'm in town. And how about this? In addition to going to Cincinnati this coming weekend, I think I may finally check off the coveted guaranteed rate off my list. The Cubs are not in town, and Ken Schultz has begrudgingly agreed to go to his first regular season game, any game, since 1997. He has not been to the Upside Down Arrow since 97. So that's the plan.
That is great. Well, I hope that's a blast. That's exciting. What a get that you could get Ken down to the South Side and go see Adam and Rosemont. It is a good club. That's fun. So good stuff. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back next week at Away Games Pod and all the things. I'm Kevin. He's Adam. Goodbye.